everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. Now, this week we're joined by a person who, after witnessing her sister go through a traumatic experience, is on a mission to help promote and inspire people with their general health. It's Tess. Hi, Tess. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Lee. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Before we get into your story and what you're aiming to do, I've just got a couple of quick fire get to know you questions, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So, the first one, if you could trade lives with a TV character or person for a day, who would it be and why?
TV character. I would say perhaps someone like Brad Pitt. I've seen a lot of his movies and as well his good looks. I think he's a very good actor. And it's an industry that I'm really interested in because, acting is quite a craft. It's not easy, to remember all those lines and everything and to perform and really to get those emotions out and the audience can feel them. I mean, it is quite remarkable. So I would love to spend a day and learning about him, what inspires him, and about his work and and the industry.
Brilliant. Next one is, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what food would that be?
That's difficult, having a nutrition background. One food. Oh boy. I would have to say wild salmon, not necessarily because of the taste. Well, the taste is quite nice, but because of the nutrition benefits.
So I'm not really a lover of fish, but I know how good fish is for you.
Yeah, because I love broccoli as well, but it doesn't have any, it's not high quality protein. What would your food be if it's one thing?
Oh, you're not going to like this answer, but a doner kebab.
Oh, right, okay, that's delicious.
It is delicious, but it's not good for you, so.
Yeah, but it could be worse.
Next one, if you could speak to one species of animal, what animal would you speak to and why?
Interesting question. I would say eagles. They are so majestic and they're amazing to watch. And they hunt on their own, very self-sufficient, great eyesight, which I don't have. And they just look beautiful. So I would love to be able to speak to them.
As this episode's on YouTube, which is online, what's the most craziest or wildest thing you've seen on the internet lately?
Well, I do watch a lot of food things, something to do with health and wellness. I think the craziest thing to me is someone saying that you can lose weight by just drinking water.
Yeah, exactly. And last one for this segment, I don't know if you've ever got plans to, or you already have wrote an autobiography, but if you was, what would the title be?
I would say life is not meant to be in one place.
That's a brilliant title. Well, Tess, thanks for those quick fire questions. Like we said in the intro, something horrific happened to your sister, which has led you on a journey to try and help support others in changing their life. Can you explain what happened and how that affected you?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I'm a health and wellness coach. So I've been doing that for a while and I have a nutrition background, as I said earlier. So I've always believed in disease prevention and looking after your overall well-being, physical health, mental health, emotional health. But what I couldn't believe was that over 2 years ago, my sister had a hemorrhagic stroke. Just before Christmas, I got a call from my family in Hong Kong. I'm based in the US, so they're far away from me, and said that she had been rushed into hospital for emergency brain surgery because she just passed out. She collapsed at work, but fortunately, her workplace actually in a hospital. So, they left no time, and she was very fortunate that way. She had a brain bleed. that's what happens with hemorrhagic stroke. Is that I understand there are two forms of strokes. One is hemorrhagic, and the other is caused by a clot. And the bleed is the more serious type. And since then, unfortunately, she lost mobility on her left side, lost a bit of her speech, and that was over 2 years ago. And she had a lot of treatments, physical therapy, occupational therapy, a lot of medications, and so on. But to this day, she's still in a wheelchair. Her speech is completely recovered. Um, Mentally, she seems fine, but obviously there's some kind of damage that has happened. Even though she can have a conversation and she kinds of makes sense, when we ask her questions. But she cannot live independently. So that meant that she couldn't go back home. She couldn't go to work. The job that she loved, she had to stop that. And from that day onwards, she's been living in a facility where she requires 24-hour care. And it's tragic because what they found out was that she had very high blood pressure that wasn't managed. A lot of people here live with high blood pressure and they're on high blood pressure medications. Those medications are usually very effective. They worked to keep the blood pressure down so it doesn't get to the point where you get a stroke. We don't know what happened. We can't ask her a question because she can't record anything. But from her medical records, we looked back. She actually had very high blood pressure even 2 years before COVID. So the high blood pressure had been going on for a long time. And what's so sad to me is that, because of what I do, I help people manage high blood pressure. And it works very well, by engaging in some lifestyle changes. Or changing, for example, getting more sleep, exercise, changing your diet. And if those things don't work, you can go on medication. So, it doesn't have to be this way. But she never spoke to us about it. She never mentioned it. And we don't know what happened. We don't know if we would have thought that the doctor would have recommended her to go on medications. And perhaps she thought it wasn't that important. She ignored it. But she never said anything to us because I could have helped her. I could have given her some suggestions as to what to do. Or if she didn't want to do those things, I would just say to her, I would have encouraged her to go on a medication, because it's something, high blood pressure is something you need to manage. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to live with it and see what happens. It's like a walking time bomb when you do that. And so it's really tragic. And because of that, I'm more motivated to, I'm determined to help people so they don't, this doesn't happen to them. There are people out there walking around with high blood pressure, and I want them to get this message that they need to do something about it. They do, it's not something, because I think with a lot of health problems, people wait till something very serious happens before they do anything about. And with high blood pressure, you might not get any symptoms until it's too late.
You just said sort of reminisce. So my wife's stroke was through a clot. So they say we're all born with holes in our heart, but for 25% of us, it doesn't close and it doesn't matter. Well, she was going into heart failure, which we had no awareness of because she showed no signs. A clot formed, and then it went through the hole, which obviously led to the brain causing the stroke. Well, she suffers the same symptoms as your sister. She's got no feeling in the left side of her body. Her speech did return, but it's the brain damage side of things as well. So we can have very superficial conversations. Sometimes they're repeated conversations, but she can't analyse things that are deeper, or she struggles when there's more than one person having a conversation. It makes her really fatigued and really tired. So I can sympathise with where you're coming from. And do you think like your sister didn't speak about her high blood pressure? Because like what you said, because it's something that you get told by a doctor, but there's not really any symptoms, and you think I'll just deal with that later, or it's not a big thing. Do you think that's why she felt like she couldn't speak to you guys about it?
We really don't know what happened. It's a mystery
Yeah.
to us because she told us about other ailments that she had.
Yeah.
That she has some kind of a problem with her bladder, and she was always telling us about it. I don't know how this high blood pressure condition was ignored completely or was not mentioned to us. It's really frustrating because she's only 64 years old. So that's quite young to be someone living in a wheelchair for the rest of her
Yeah.
life. It's something that really, didn't have to happen.
But like you said,
Um,
I think as well, because like my wife was only 33, and since then I've seen a lot of things about young people having strokes. It seems like it's becoming more of a regular thing in a younger person because you always think of
mm,
stroke and you always think of the elderly, but there is
yes, you
actually
do.
quite a lot of young people, because like you said, 64 is not old. So there is
No.
quite a lot of young people that are having strokes. But do you think, again, it's because of health systems across the world since the pandemic hasn't caught up with being able to keep a regular eye on people? So do you think that's the reason why things are being missed?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, very much so. And with health, I always say to people that, they need to be proactive rather than reactive. And I think very often, the doctors, can be overwhelmed with a lot of patients. So they might not necessarily be giving each patient the attention that they need. And it's really up to us to take control and stay in charge of our health, rather than leaving everything to the medical professionals. Just like, your finances, your business, your social life, you take charge of it. You don't wait till something happens, or you don't wait for other people to tell you what's going on. With blood pressure, you can get a monitor and you can measure it
Exactly.
yourself. Now I tell my friends, I say, go and check it out, it's in a way, it's good to be curious about your health.
Before we get into that side of things, going back to you guys as a family, how's that affected you, like mental health wise, since the incident? Because I know for me, my first year, I was very angry, and then I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to live up to what I needed to do now. Because she's
Mm,
at home,
yes,
I was sitting there thinking to myself, oh, I haven't signed up for this. Can I spend the next 40, 50 years in this new situation? And then I was getting
yes.
angry with myself for feeling like that as well. So there's lots of
Yeah.
more emotions going through.
Oh,
Have
yes.
you guys sort of been through the same similar situation after the event?
Yes, yes. First of all, it happens to be May happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month in
Yeah.
America. Yeah. So I'm actually doing a talk later on mental health. Yes, it affects those people around you, when you get sick. And it's hard because suddenly she needs all the care. And in Hong Kong, my elder sister goes in and sees her from, all the time. My parents not around anymore. So, we come from a small family. So it's just my elder sister who goes in to see her, and she tries her best to bring her whatever she needs, goes and talks to her. It's difficult, but my other sister is philosophical because she's a Buddhist, and she says it just happens, and you just deal with it. But the one thing that we have to say, my sister who had the stroke, she's never um, she never complains about her condition. She never been seen to be distressed about it. I don't know, it's something to do with what happened to her brain.
Yeah.
So she doesn't sit there and I've never seen, I went back to see her last year. She was fine. And my sister said to me, my other sister said she never broke down and cried about her, even at the beginning after she had the stroke when she couldn't move at all. She couldn't hardly speak. She couldn't be understood. She was coping so perhaps this way is actually better, because if something happened like that to me, I would have thought I would just be crying my eyes out.
Yeah, no,
So,
totally agree.
yes, yeah, yeah. So it's hard on all of us, and it's sad when I look at pictures of us when we were children, when we were growing up, and then suddenly I feel, when I look at those pictures, I thought, and now she's in a wheelchair. It's really hard, but life happens, and we just have to, deal with it and do the best we can.
Like you said, because you've got your food and nutrition background and you've now got a cause to really be determined to help change people's lives. Obviously, like around the world in the food industry, it seems like the more unhealthier the food, the easier it is to get access to. Is that a big blockage in the way of the work you're trying to do? If that makes sense, because it's easier for me to go and get a McDonald's than it is probably to go and buy a load of vegetables because they go off in 2 days' time. So,
Yes.
so do you find that's an issue to why people's eating habits are how they are?
It is difficult because there's so much advertising going on, a lot of marketing, and the food industry is so powerful. So, they are there to sell food that they can keep selling. And a lot of highly processed foods are addictable. That's why people think, oh, I want to keep eating this stuff. And if you were selling food, you probably do the same.
Yeah.
Broccoli is not that addictive. So it is challenging. But I think education is important, and these days I think people are more aware of what's happening. They can go on the internet. There's a lot of information going on out there. A lot of experts are doing podcasts, informing the general public about what's really going on. I think it's really important that people just understand this idea that they can actually take charge rather than let things happen to them. Because a lot of people feel that, it's just genetics. There's nothing I can do to prevent diseases, and it doesn't matter what I eat, because look at my neighbor next door. He eats badly all the time, and he's in his 90s. He smokes and he drinks. So you can't look at something like that. That's just a minority. Most of us don't operate, don't have those fortunate genes. And genes, after all, only research shows that only play 20% of disease developments. Is what you do with your lifestyle that really matters, that can turn those genes on and off.
Do you also think, as well, going back, like you said, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, that people's mental health links into their relationship to food? Because obviously, if you go out and celebrate, you usually go out with friends to a meal, but the meals you usually go to are not healthy. Or I know, like with me, I can be an emotional eater. So if I've had a bad day at work, I buy a takeaway to cheer me up. Or if I've had a good day at work, I buy a takeaway to celebrate. Do you think that's part of the thing of needing to do, is break the habit of the relationship with food before you can then decide to have a nutritious diet?
That's a very good point, definitely. What I always say is having the right mindset, because it's very important how you look at everything, look at health habits. And yes, certain foods are addictive. They do something to your brain, and you really have to be strong and consistent, about keeping those things away and using treats as treats. So rather than having them accessible at home, perhaps wait till you go, when you're out, having a celebration, for example. And, with mental health, yes, it's so important. If every time you get upset, you get worried about something, you have anxiety, you look for food to comfort you, that's not really, conducive to healthy living. Because after all, what worries you, what is giving you anxiety is still there. So you need to work out a way to, to actually overcome that, or try to see what other ways, you can do. Otherwise, it's a downward spiral, because you have something that worries you, you're doing, you reach out for sugary things to eat or whatever to lift you up, but then those sugary things are giving you another problem.
Someone sort of is sort of in the mindset to ready to make that change. How do they go about reaching out to you, and what's the initial process of a meeting with you?
Well, they will reach out to me. The best will be on my website, so they can fill in a form. And with the form, there are actually some questions that you find out more about what they want to achieve, what their goals are, what their current health issues are, because everyone's different, and that's why the customized approach is important. What might work for you might not work for someone else. and what's important to you. Why do you want to make these changes? The why is really important. Just saying that I want to eat healthy food, but why? Why does it matter to you? And then they will contact me, and then we have a conversation. And this way to see if it's a good fit, whether I can help you with, what you want to address. And then we will have and then we decide on the program that we will do. We'll probably meet once a week, and have and then work on some goals and some strategies to help you to get to where you want to be.
And obviously, as you said earlier, you're in the United States. Do you do these sessions remotely? So can anyone in the world access your service if they want to?
Yes, yes. That's the beauty about, technology. These days, one could be anywhere. It's really flexible. Yes, it would be just like this, come on Zoom, and this way we can see each other, talk to each other every week. And it's almost like being next to me. And of course, I travel quite a bit. And if the client happens to be in the UK, when I come back to London, we can meet in person, have a coaching session together, and that works really well as well.
Brilliant. Sorry, I forgot to ask earlier, why did you decide to get into coaching originally?
Oh, yes, I was actually practicing as a nutritionist for many years when I was living in LA. But when I was younger, before I actually went into nutrition, I have a family history of diabetes. And that made me aware that I really needed to take care of my health, because my father was diabetic, and I knew all the problems that would come with it. Even though you can be on medications, but life is just not fun anymore when you have to watch everything you eat wherever you happen to be. So I became conscious, and I thought it was fun to take care of your health, because this way, you can be in charge. You are the boss. You are the architect of your health. And so I was always healthy, going to the gym and so on. And I was interested in food, what it does. I love eating person anyway, and my mom was a very good cook. And then I decided to move to New York, to actually pursue a master's in clinical nutrition. And after that, I moved to LA and started practicing as a nutritionist for over 10 years. But I switched into coaching after COVID, because I realized that just by focusing, it was really, it was wonderful helping people, to deal with the diets, how to actually inspire them to eat healthily, make them, eat dietary changes. But there's more to health than just food. Sleep is important, exercise, stress management, even social connection. All these things have, work together. So if one works but the other doesn't, it will have an impact on your health in general. So I felt that, it's more important to actually to be on, go on the holistic approach. And again, with coaching, a lot of it, I focus on the mindset. It's actually having that mentality to say everything you look at, when it comes to healthy living, is a positive thing rather than fighting against it.
Yeah, because that's the thing I was about to ask. There's a lot of stigma around being healthy and eating healthily, but can it actually be fun?
Yes, I think it's actually fun. My clients find it fun. It's doing little experiments on yourself. It's like being a scientist. You can, for example, these days you can even test yourself for omega-3 fatty acids. So that's where you get a lot of fatty fish from. That's why eating salmon is so good for you, sardines. And you can test it. And then if it's a bit low, and you can, then you make an effort to eat more or take a supplement, and then in 3 months' time, you get yourself tested, and you can see that your level, can go up. If it does go up, it's empowering. And same with your blood pressure. If you happen to have high blood pressure, and you say, okay, I'll lose weight, I will eat less salt in my food, I exercise, I get more sleep, and then you see your blood pressure go down. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. It's all because of you.
No, exactly. It sounds very empowering. And people, if you want more support from Tess, please make sure you click the link in the description to get to Tess's website. Well, Tess, this has been a fascinating conversation. Before we go, I've just got a couple of would you rather questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
These are just silly questions out of my kids' game at Christmas, so there's just a couple to go through. So we've got: would you rather have roller skates for feet or get bitten by a dog every time you go outside?
Roller skates
Yeah, I
on my
agree.
feet.
The only thing with being bitten by a dog, you will be able to control where it bites you, so just aim for the elbow
Exactly.
all the
That's
time.
right.
The next two is: would you rather have everything smell bad forever or fight off 20 duck-sized unicorns every time you go to the restroom?
I think the unicorn bit. I don't want anything to smell bad forever.
The only problem with that, we're getting older, so we need to go to the toilet a lot more at night time. So there'll be lots of fighting.
That's true. We have a
And
potty next to the bed.
yeah, I don't need to go to the restroom then. And the last two is: would you rather feel like you are sitting on pins every time you sit down or have toes for fingers?
Have toes for fingers.
You
I
know, I
think
think
toes for fingers.
I think I agree with that one. Well, Tess, like I said, it's been a fascinating conversation, and anytime you want to come back on, you'd be more than welcome. But just before we go, I've got one last question, and I ask this to every guest. If you could be remembered for one word and one word only, what would it be and why?
Word only. Oh, wow. I would say prevention. In prevention for, for health, and that's really important.